Hey writers, Ingrid here, and this is Ingrid's Notes where I'm talking about creative writing, craft, and process. And today I want to talk about profluence. What? What, you haven't heard of this fancy MFA term known as profluence? Okay, yes, profluence is one of those big scholarly MFA words that's dropped like objective correlative and fictive dream and to be all like, I'm fancy and intellectual. But it's also a pretty important term and concept to know about and be aware of. The word profluence is derived from the word profluent, which means to flow smoothly and abundantly forth. So this concept, as far as I am aware, was coined by John Gardner. At least the first time I ever came across it was in this book, The Art of Fiction. Here's what Gardner has to say about profluence. By definition and of aesthetic necessity, a story contains profluence, a requirement best satisfied by a sequence of causally related events. Profluence is the root interest of all conventional narrative, wherein the reader must be intellectually and emotionally involved and led by successive, seemingly inevitable steps to the story's relatively stable outcome. So, what does all of that mean? Okay, so profluence is really about the paradox of time. It's dealing with both the flow of time in your story itself, but also sort of the outward necessity of time needed for your reader to consume the story, which they can only do in a linear fashion. They can only read one word after the next, one page after the next. Profluence is the cause and effect, scene-to-scene connective tissue that constructs the flow of time in your story world, as well as being the underlying engine that makes a novel coherent to your reader. No wonder it's such a big fancy MFA word. Okay, so let's just step back and unpack all of that. So the basic characteristic of narrative and storytelling is time. It takes time to read it. We can't actually consume it in a single instant. Therefore, in order for it to be coherent, it needs some form of profluence and flow to unify it together so it's not just a bunch of random pieces. Profluence is the logical progression and movement of your story. It is the events and the event sequence, the sequences in which you put those events in and how you construct them together to create a flow and a movement in your story that is logical for the reader. And the reader is kind of the wild card in this scenario, because as you give them the story, paragraph by paragraph, scene by scene, the reader is reading that linearly, but they're interacting with it. So as you give them description or dialogue or event, action, whatever you've written on the page, what the reader is doing is they're reading that and they're now projecting. Their mind is imagining the future of this story based on what is on the page. They're going, oh wow, that's really interesting and fascinating. I wonder if this is going to happen next, or if he's going to kill that one, or if he's going to fall in love with so-and-so. The reader is engaging in the story. This questioning by the reader, wanting to know what's going to happen next and how, and guessing what that will be. This is what actually engages the reader to read from one paragraph into the next paragraph, and they will continue to do this. Now, the second the reader stops projecting forward and is engaging and is guessing where the story is going, that's the moment you've lost your reader. That's the moment the profluence and that flow forward has been broken. This is why the words themselves matter. Every word matters. If I get tripped up on a sentence, suddenly I've stopped projecting forward, I'm stopped being in the scene, in the movement, in the story, and I'm confused. I've been pulled back and I've gone, what does that mean? Let me go back. And we've broken it. We've broken the flow. At its core, profluence is how you draw the reader in and move them forward, paragraph by paragraph, chapter by chapter. It's how you engage them and give them the sense that the story is always moving forward. And that inertia of flowing smoothly and abundantly forward can very easily be broken if you don't have the right connective tissue, if your cause and effect chain is not clear, if something happens and it's confusing. You can very, very quickly break that illusion of time and that effortless movement. And that's why profluence is really, really important. It's an overarching concept and it's, yes, a little heady, but it's essential. It's part of that dream you cast over the reader. If you want to know more about profluence, I suggest you pick up The Art of Fiction by John Gardner. He talks about it quite a bit. And if you're confused about something, just ask it in the comments and I'll do my best to answer it for you. This is Ingrid's Notes, and if you're enjoying these videos, please subscribe. And while you're writing, or even while you're reading today, I want you to start thinking about this concept of profluence, of this effortless flow, this sort of seamlessness through cause and effect that is the tissue that moves you through a story in an effortless way.